take to the Bible. Take to the Bible. Take to the Bible. To the Bible, yeah.
Hello, welcome to another episode of BCC Bakes Through the Bible. My name's Sam and I'm really excited to be able to bake with you for the first time this week. What are we going to bake? We're going to bake Promise cookies. We'll have a little bit of story later on as well. So what are you going to be able to, what are you going to need to bake these cookies? Well, you're going to need 50 grams of plain flour. You're going to need 50 grams of granulated or fine sugar in a bowl nice and ready. 2 eggs, but we're just going to need the whites, not the yolks. 2 eggs are needed. We're going to need some vanilla essence, a few drops. I think that's all I've got left. Edible glitter, you can find this in most supermarkets these days. Edible glitter, we're going to use that at the end. And 50 grams of butter. I've gone for salted. If you don't have salted butter, you might want a pinch of salt as well. What equipment are we needing? Mixing bowl, very important. Wooden spoon, superb for mixing. We're going to need a spatula later on. And we're going to need a baking tray with some greaseproof paper on, all ready to go for our cookie batter that we're going to make just now. And the oven needs to be at 180 degrees. I'm preheating mine as we speak. That's everything we're going to need. It's quite an easy method to make these cookies, and it may not take as long as some of the other ones. But what you're also going to need is 12, because it's going to make 12 cookies, 12 promises by God. And we will put a link where you can grab these promises by God to us and his people. We're going to need those for the end as well. So, shall we get going? What are we going to need to do? We are going to need to separate the eggies. Both of these, remember, just the whites, not the yolks. Jacob decides to sieve it through his hands, which is quite a good idea. Let's get that out of the way and let that yolk and the whites just dribble through your hands like so. Try and get all that. Okay, make sure there's no shelly bits in there as well. Bit of a wipe down. I like to clean up as I go, makes it a bit easier as we go. So we've got our egg whites in there. How are they looking? Wibbling around. And what do we need to put in there with that? We need our sugar. So here's our sugar. Make sure you pick up the sugar, not the flour. Not time for the flour. So we're going to put that in, pour it all in. Get your spoon and give it a mix. And you've got to mix this well. Get it all mixed in. Okay. There's a nice mix in there. What's next? We need to melt the butter in a small saucepan. So I've got that on the heat, ready to go. Need to turn it on. Got another spoon for this. So we're going to melt the butter now in a saucepan, so be careful because it's going to get hot, and maybe grab another spoon or something just to mix it around so you don't catch it or burn the butter. And then we're going to add our flour and our vanilla extract all together. I'm going to do some more mixing all together to make our Promise cookies. Very exciting. And then we're nearly ready to put it on the baking tray and get it in the oven. And I'll tell you how long it needs when we get there. Keep you in suspense. Here goes the butter beginning to melt. butter melted, pour it into your eggs. And sugar, get all those drips of butter in. Then you need your flour, 50 grams remember. Put that in, and we're going to want a few drops of vanilla extract. I've only got a little bit left, but it might be worth using a teaspoon rather than just pouring out the bottle, because you might pour a little bit too much. That's going to be a lovely amount. Oh, I've got a couple drips left for another bake. And then what do? We mix nice together until it's nice and smooth. And this is basically making our cookie batter. Not much more is needed than this. So let's mix, get this nice and smooth. Okay, I think that's nice and smooth. It's going to be quite drippy. Ooh. This is the basis to your promise cookies. I'm going to grab a different spoon. Now, use your baking tray. So while the butter's melting, or even before, while you're measuring out, you can get this ready to go. Greased up, bit of baking sheet, and on. So we're gonna the size of my sheet might mean I need to do 2 batches. Your oven should be at 180 degrees, and you're going to need to put these in for just 4 minutes or until golden brown. So it might be worth keeping an eye. But you've got 4 minutes to spare. So what could you do in that 4 minutes? You could get your promises ready, cut them out. Remember, there'll be a link. You could maybe do a bit of washing up. Get it nice and tidy. So then it's all nice and tidy for you to enjoy these cookies once they're baked. But there's a little bit more to do once they're baked. So I will see you in a bit. Okay, just taking them out of the oven. So the edges are going a little bit brown. They've come together a little bit, so you might need to just to separate them a tiny bit. You might need a heat-proof mat as well. And we are going to add our promises, and this is where we need our palette knife. Just going to give it a little bit of a separation. Nope. They're coming off nice. Okay, so we need a promise. We put the promise in, and with the palette knife, you just fold over. So it holds that. Bend it in half a little bit. There you go. Well, we'll do the rest. Fantastic. And I'm going to put the rest in now, and then we'll get to the story. See you again shortly. Okay, other batch is done. Let's get them out the oven. Turn that off. Bit of a faff. So again, you need a palette knife. I found it easy with my hands because my spatula is a bit rubbery. Actually, not even tough enough to cut through this light cookie batter. They're going to be hot. Just grab a knife. Okay, so again, you're going to have your promises ready. Pop in these cookies and fold them over with a knife. And add them to the rest. Okay, and the last thing you need to do, the edible glitter. I've got pink, and I've got like a turquoise. I might do a bit of both, and you just sprinkle some of that on to decorate. Here we go. Here is our plate of cookies. I'll pop some green edible glitter on those. Our promise cookies. Promises in the middle of all of those. I need to say a big well done and a thank you to the Pegs. They've sent another picture of their bake from last week. Our sad face pizzas. Here they are. Wonderful. And did you see how they put a happy face there too? Really great, because there is happiness to come, even though it seemed a little bit down, didn't it, that they made a mistake and they disobeyed God. But after Adam and Eve, things just kind of went from bad to worse. People weren't being kind to each other, people weren't loving each other, people weren't loving God either. Goodness. People didn't even deserve for God to be kind, but guess what? We've got a really, really, really kind God. I don't know if you've experienced that for yourself. I have, and he's really, really kind. And he was kind to a man called Abraham, and that's our story. You can find it in Genesis 12 and 15, this part, because God made some promises to Abraham. That's why we've made promise cookies. Some of those promises are in here, in these that he made to Abraham. And he got Abraham, and he asked him to leave his home and to take his family, which he did. He obeyed God and he did as he was told, and he went and he did these things, and God grabbed him and he said, I've got some promises to make you, Abraham. I promise that there will always be people who trust in me. People beginning in your family, starting from your family, starting with you, Abraham, trusting in me. There's going to be so many more people that trust in God. God said so many people that you won't even be able to count them. Just like you can't count the stars in the sky. And I've got part of that promise in this cookie here. There'll be so many people who trust in me, you won't be able to count them. Genesis 15, verse 5. And all these promises in the cookies are from God's word. I will show great kindness to these people, your family. I'm going to show them great kindness. Another really big promise to make. God's got to be kind to the descendants of Abraham. We don't always find it hard to be kind to people, sometimes do we? Especially if they're going to try and take our cookies when we haven't offered them to them. Through them, I will show kindness to the whole world. Through Abraham's family, there's going to be a kindness show to the whole world. And I promise that I will give these people land to live in. And we start to look at a storyline in the Bible where this place called the Promised Land that God is trying to get his people to get to, that he's going to give to them. But there's some things in the way and some things that they do that get in the way. God has made some big promises there, that there's going to be people that trust in him more numerous than the stars in the sky. That's like trying to count, a little bit like trying to count all the glitter on all of these cookies. Trying to count all the bits of glitter. I could have a go now, but I'd be here a while because it's too numerous. There's going to be people that trust in God. So next time you look at the stars and you see them, maybe have a go at counting them, and remember that God promised to Abraham that there was going to be a kindness shown and people that trust in God, as many as more numerous of the stars in the sky. Try counting them all. Remember this promise that God has made. He's promised that he's going to show a great kindness. My goodness, kind to us. Have a think. Maybe speak to mum and dad, your adults. Where's God been kind to them? Where can you see that God's been kind to you? Because he's keeping that promise every day. And he's given the people a land to live in. And as we bake through the Bible, we're going to see more of that story. These are great big promises, but we've got a God who can keep all the promises that he ever makes, even these big ones. Isn't that brilliant? He made some promises to Abraham, and he's kept them still. Really, really good. Thank you for joining me as we bake these promise cookies. And before we go, shall we take a look and see if anyone actually did it?
Oh, lovely. I like that. Nice.
You've baked me a promise cookie, Sam. Great. Let's read the promise. See if you can actually bake. God promises to those who believe and trust in Jesus. It says you will be saved from death. Romans 10 verse 9. What a great promise. Thanks, Sam. Let's see if this is tasty at all. Edible glitter. Wow. Taste sensation, Sam. Oh my goodness. Any more? I can't help. Rubbish. I'm gonna have another one. Thanks guys, thanks for your kind words. I can bake, it seems. Guys, that's all we've got time for this week. We're going to be back next week and we're going to do some bread shapes. God's people grow. What are you going to need to be able to join us as we make some bread shapes? Let me tell you. 500 grams of white bread flour, a 7-gram sachet of fast action dried yeast, a pinch of salt, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 150 milliliters of cold water. You're going to need 150 milliliters of boiling water too, and extra flour and oil for sprinkling. And we'll be able to have a great story and a great bake next week. Until then, have a super week. Bye bye.
Say, take to the Bible. Say, take to the Bible. Say, take to the Bible. To the Bible, yeah.